Hello everyone who wants to improve their spoken English. Today we'll look at how important it is to acquire new vocabulary in context and how much time you may be wasting learning new words separately. Just by learning meanings of new words, or even worse, learning them through a translation in your native language. I've been discussing it on my blog and in my videos quite a lot, but I've never actually brought up certain examples to show you the effectiveness of learning new English words through context. It's the so-called contextual learning. So, let's do an experiment first. It's very important you participate in this, because if you don't, you won't be able to feel the difference between learning new vocabulary with and without context. So please, follow my instructions, alright? Basically what will happen now is you'll hear me reading out a few quite sophisticated English adjectives, but in case you know a few or even all of those words, please don't be offended. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence by making assumptions about your English vocabulary. I'll be doing my best to pick out a few English words that aren't heard that often in normal daily conversations or in media. Now, please listen to the following 5 English words with the corresponding explanations and try to do your best to memorize those words and their meanings. So, here we go. Detrimental, causing damage, harm, or injury. Untenable, being such that defense or maintenance is impossible. Precarious, dangerously lacking in security or stability. Impertinent, rude, lacking good manners. Adverse, opposite to one's interests or welfare, harmful or unfavorable. So these were the 5 adjectives, and I have to confess that I purposefully chose these words because they all describe something negative, just to make it more difficult for you to memorize them. But if you think it was unfair and I should have given you words describing different concepts so that you have a better chance of memorizing them, wait till you see how easy it is going to be for you to remember these new English words if you learn them contextually. Okay, here it comes. Rude, lacking good manners. Impertinent, causing damage, harm, or injury. Detrimental, opposite to one's interests or welfare, harmful or unfavorable. Adverse, being such that defense or maintenance is impossible. Untenable, dangerously lacking in security or stability. Precarious. Well, how well did you do? I hope you got some of them right. Anyway, what I'm going to prove here today is that it's very important to acquire new English vocabulary in context. So I'd like you to think about how effectively you could use these 5 words in your English conversations or in writing. How likely do you think is that you will start using these new English words when you speak with other English speakers? Do you think you could easily blend them into sentences as you speak? I hate to disappoint you, but personally I think you couldn't, and I guess you've come to the same conclusion yourself. Am I not right? So where is the problem? Why is it that we foreigners, when learning new English words the traditional way, struggle to use them in actual conversations? And why, if we use them, our speech is quite often very hesitant and we keep thinking of what could be the best fitting word to use when describing a certain concept, event, person, or thing? The answer is quite simple, my friend. When you learn the meaning of a new English word just on its own, it's very difficult for your mind to create a relationship between that word and other English words in your mind. There are probably dozens of very similar English words that you already know, And most importantly, you've been using them in certain situations and certain contexts. So it's much easier for your mind to stick with what you already know than use that new English word. Also, you may find it hard to speak fluently when trying to use such new vocabulary words because you have to spend too much time analyzing if that particular word can be used in this particular context. You basically have to go back to that word's description like a dictionary entry in your mind and see if it fits the particular sentence and context. And another huge problem is, how do we know that we use that particular word right? I guess we already know that we can't use English words the same way we'd use the respective words in our native languages, because every language has its own unique way of using certain words. And if you just create word strings as a direct translation from your language, you may come up with silly things in English. So the million-dollar question is, how can we memorize new English words effectively and use them like a native English speaker? Before I answer this question, let me introduce you to a new concept. Imagine that every word in the English language has little hooks attached to them. And when you form a sentence, words are hooking up with each other. Now, imagine that certain words are more likely to hook up with each other and less likely to do so with others. So, for instance, the word combination keep in touch is what native English speakers would say, because these three words are normally hooked up with each other. If you try to replace the word keep with other words like stay or remain, it would be understandable what you meant, but it just wouldn't sound right. So, now we can go back to the original question, how we can memorize new English words effectively and use them like native speakers do. The trick is to memorize what other words your new word is usually hooked up with, and that's going to make it an awful lot easier for you to memorize it. And you won't have to refer back to that word's description in your mind to use it in a sentence, because you already know what words it goes together with. So now, let's do our little experiment once more. But this time, I'll give you a word combination instead of a description. And you'll see how easy it is to memorize new English vocabulary if you go down this route. So, here we go again. Detrimental effect, a negative effect. Adverse weather conditions, bad weather conditions. Precarious work, part-time, temporary, and fixed-time employment where there's less certainty and stability for the employee. Untenable position is a position you can no longer hold. Impertinent behavior, rude behavior. Now, what should have happened when you heard these adjective and noun combinations is new relations should have formed between the adjectives you weren't familiar with and the nouns that are very well known to you. Of course, it would take more repetitions to make sure those word combinations or so-called collocations get imprinted in your mind, but I hope you'll feel the difference in terms of your ability to remember those specific adjectives before and now. Now, let's do our memory test once more, and this time you have to call out the word combos I gave you a minute ago. Negative effect. Detrimental effect. Bad weather conditions. Adverse weather conditions. Part-time, temporary, and fixed-term employment where there's less certainty and stability for the employee. Precarious work. A position you can no longer hold. Untenable position. Rude behavior. Impertinent behavior. Alright, so how did you fare this time? Did you feel the difference between memorizing those words purely by their descriptions and now, when you memorize them contextually? I bet you did. And that's what you have to keep doing when learning new English words in future. Forget about hammering new words just on their own into your mind. The chances are you won't be able to use them as part of a fluent English speech. Your new approach has to involve memorizing any new English word you hear within context, in combination with words that it most likely goes together with. Remember about the word hooks. Every English word has a pair of hooks to hook up with others, and your aim as an English improver is to learn word combinations as opposed to single words. Alright, thank you very much for staying with me now, and I hope you'll find my advice useful. See you soon, my friend.